So I want to welcome everybody today. We've just completed a series of conversations around our Lonesome project, and I'm lonesome for our artists, and I'm lonesome for Jennifer Johns, my dear friend, vocalist, and I'm thrilled you're here with me today. Thank you for joining me.
Likewise, thank you for having me.
You're our encore. Surprisingly quiet. I get loud, you get
beginning.
We'll see how that works. We'll see how that works. I'm going to take a minute and introduce Jennifer for those of you who don't know her and her work. Jennifer Johns is a powerhouse vocalist, songwriter, producer, activist, and entrepreneur who creates sounds, experiences, and products that are sure to stir your soul, inspire your mind, and move your body. Miss Johns has taken her brand of Afro-diasporic world music all over the globe, rocking stages from Denver to Dusseldorf, Los Angeles to London, Kuala Lumpur to Kampala. Jennifer has shared lineups with some of the best in the business, including the likes of Miss Lauryn Hill, the Black Eyed Peas, Mos Def, Ziggy Marley, Gil Scott-Heron, Wyclef, De La Soul, and Common, to name just a few. Jennifer's journey as a recording artist began in 2004 with the underground success of her first album, Heavy Electromagnetic Solar Poetic Jungle Hop. That's Jennifer.
Say it 3 times.
Songs like the title track Heavy, with its accompanying artfully futuristic video, broke through the national and international underground soul and hip hop scene, making Jennifer a notable force in her field. In 2008, Jennifer shifted her attention from the entertainment industry to leveraging her art for social movements. Immediately, she began to find herself sharing stages with thought leaders like Reverend Dr. Michael Beckwith, Van Jones, Phaledra Ellis Lampkins, Dr. Sean Ginwright, and more. Her brand of soul-inspiring sounds has landed her gigs at the Kennedy Center, the Apollo, and on stage for both NFL World Bowl and the NFL Hall of Fame. Over the last 8 years, Jennifer has become a Green for All Fellow, a Bold Food Fellow, Artist in Residence at Food First, the first Artist in Residence at the Langston Hughes Center for the Performing Arts Institute, and a Montalvo Lucas Artists Program Fellow, Performing Arts Guest Fellow. We're gonna have to get on the same page. In February of 2016, Jennifer began a journey called the F.U.N Manifesto, F.U.N, to ask people about their ideas of freedom. What was meant to be a 3-week trip became a 10-month odyssey that ultimately produced Jennifer's first official release in nearly 10 years, Azania. While in most circles, Jennifer is best known for her music as a musician and activist, she also has spent much creative energy on performance installations and the visual arts. In the summer of 2018, Jennifer joined Montalvo and presented Live, a ritual for humanity at the Art on the Grounds Festival, We the People, where she simulated a citizen's and ancestors' arrest of a police officer. In the fall of 2019, she co-presented a choreo poem featuring the words and music with movement by Kendra Barnes of the Kendra Kimbrough Dance Ensemble at Oakland's historic Malanga Cascalord Center. Throughout the spring of 2020, Jennifer shared music and art from her project Good Medicine, featuring songs produced through Jennifer and longtime collaborator Kev Choice. Currently, Jennifer is working on her next performance installation, an album along with technology. Her next works are an evolution of the F.U.N Manifesto. In Jennifer's words, she says, "What I've learned through my art and activism is that both freedom and joy are personal and can be chosen at any time. Through this performance, the new online portal, and the F.U.N content, I plan to remind people that they can always choose." Hi, Jennifer.
Hi.
It's good to see you.
I miss you.
I can barely hear you, so it means nobody can hear you.
Oh no. You still can't hear me?
I can hear you now better. Nathan, let us know how we're doing. So, Jennifer, can you believe 5 months ago to the date, I came to find you in the studio. I believe you were in Studio 51, getting ready to record. And we needed to leave. We needed to close down the residency. You had about 4 days to figure out where and how you were going to relocate. And you weren't alone.
Yeah.
You were in residency with about 6 other fellows at the time.
Yeah.
Some traveling back to Japan. It's pretty crazy. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. I'm really great. I am visiting with a dear friend in Sacramento. I needed some heat. Missing that Montalvo heat around this time. So I decided to come up to Sacramento and get some warmth and swim a little bit, add a little sun to my color. So I'm doing all right today. It's been colorful, but I'm doing okay. How about you?
I'm okay.
Yeah.
These are like those dog days. We've been in this for a long time.
Yes, we have been.
School started at our house yesterday, Wednesday. So we're day 2. And I've got computers and Zooms happening in every room of the house.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's a thing.
Yeah.
Jennifer, I thought of you and wanted to invite you in for a conversation for many reasons. You and I have been consistently touching base through the quarantine. You've been a huge sort of guiding light for me and a star for me. And I just come to think about you. During our Lonesome project, Chloe Bass is a conceptual artist based out of New York. She did a wayfinding project at the Studio Museum in Harlem. There was a very small sign that she placed on the grounds of the Studio Museum with a quote from her mother. And I don't feel like a mother to you, but I think about you and I think about many other artists in this moment. And the quote was, "Rest. I see what you're doing in the world and the world needs you to be well." And that's a message. So I want to start with sort of this idea of self-care. I know you were really excited to take this F.U.N Manifesto on the road, and you've been doing all of this work of transmutation, and I just want to know what you're doing to take care of yourself.
So, for anybody who knows my relationship with Kelly, it's usually me making Kelly cry. And so I can tell that we're starting already, lady. You're like, I'm gonna work hard on this one. Yeah, you know, I mean, you hit the nail right on the head. It feels like the whole universe is saying rest, you know, like I was supposed to be leaving on, well, I was supposed to have been gone, obviously, you know, I'm a touring musician, you know, my intention was to have traveled across the country this summer. And even with all of this that has come up, I still started to plan a tour to ask people about their ideas of freedom. I still very strongly believe that we create what we imagine. And so on Sunday, I was due to drive across the country with my team and go to the March on Washington. And due to a host of different things, the last straw being my father, who wrote a letter to Al Sharpton. And you know, when you get like a letter from your parents that are like, to the principal, like, that's what that letter was. One day I'll have to share that with you. And but ultimately, it just feels like the whole world is saying, this is a marathon, not a race. And you do create what you imagine, right? And that imagining has to come from the inside out. You know, you've got to cultivate that inner light, that inner calm, that inner groundedness at a time right now where everything in my like physical body wants to be in the streets and being loud and being loud in a way that in some ways I don't feel like I'm seeing. You know, I think that there's a lot of very real, righteous, rational anger and indignation on so many levels. Um, and my team is really dedicated to loud love. You know, that doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that you don't get chin checked during loud love. It doesn't mean that white supremacy doesn't need to be completely decimated during loud love. It just also means that I want to see myself in you, loud love. And that is what I've been wanting to do. But what I'm hearing is in my spirit is like swim, eat vegetables, read, sleep. And that's really, really hard.
But it's so important, right? Because it's that that's going to nourish you, that's going to keep you loud.
Yeah.
You know, when others can't be. And it does feel like things have gone quiet in a way, but it's also, you know, it's that we're at that moment when the rug is really lifted, and this kind of 2020 vision is a real thing.
It is. Just to see clearly in this time. And it's not like, I think we think of 2020 vision and it's like utopia vision, like magic, colorful, you know, angels and whatever vision. No, it's seeing what's really there. You know,
No, it's
I think that what we're seeing is part of what's really there. We're only seeing part of what's really there in 2020, you know, and I think that that's the thing that is, my spirit is longing to slow down, I know, but my mind is going, there's so much beauty in the world. Why won't the news show us the beauty in the world? All the beautiful people. If we saw the beautiful, we would have more confidence to make more beauty.
is that what you mean by only showing us part of the
yeah. Yeah, I think that the images that we're seeing in this 2020 vision have us scared.
Yeah.
They have us mortified. Like, I have bad dreams, Kelly, you know? Like, it has us scared. And I know that if I'm somebody who is as spiritually rooted and grounded as I am, that I am far from the only person who is navigating this level of anxiety. And I know that in showing each other the love, we would do better by it, but whatever. Eventually, I will own my own news network.
we will change this.
Yes, we will.
It's a hard moment to see the good. And I think, you know, this is, I know I'm not alone as people who look to you to kind of, okay, so we're transmuting joy and fun this year, Jennifer, bring it. And it's like, I got nothing, right?
Yeah.
I started the quarantine long before the picture revealed, with a daily meditation and prayer led by you on Facebook, on Instagram, for all to join in. And that's a lot for one person to take on. Tell me, will you talk a little bit, because there were some images that were this project we did at Montalvo entitled Live, a Ritual for Humanity, in which you arrested an officer and brought sort of the ancestral songs into that moment of that arrest, and then proceeded to walk the officer through the grounds of Montalvo. But less about that and more about how you came in your work to these kind of transmutations as part of what you do, and what even, you know, for some of our, what do you see this transmutation as?
I think that all of us are alchemists. One of the greatest lies of life, I think, is that we're small. Is this belief that each one of us is not capable of changing the world, when in fact, and it's, this is my personal lesson. God don't make no mistakes. So of course, I find myself in this conversation with you today, that I have the ability to change my mind, which means that I have changed the world, because it's all happening from my perspective anyhow. So I decided that instead of allowing myself to be so upset, so angry, that I needed to be able to do something with it. And that's where the transmutation rituals came from, is that, in meditation, I can imagine a different world and therefore create another reality inside my own psyche. But how powerful is it to help bring people along? And so, and because art is my alchemy, it's how I've healed myself my whole life. It is my deepest prayer, happens in my music, happens in my performance. And so when I decided that I needed to start doing these transmutation rituals, it was really an appreciation that my shows are that anyhow, and that I just wanted to get a little bit more literal. So when we did Live, I had come to Montalvo, I had messaged Lori, and I said, hey, I need to chill for a second. I'm just kind of losing it, because Stephen Clark had been murdered in his backyard while on a cell phone and had been ambushed by the police. He wasn't running from anybody or anything like that. And then there was a white woman in Philly who had recorded the arrest of a Black man at the Starbucks. And I had opened up CNN while I was there, the website, while I was at Montalvo, and the man looked like this man that I had been dating. And I remember just everything in my spirit just completely losing it, and knowing that I couldn't afford to lose my mind. And so I needed to do something better with it. In the process, I lost my mind anyhow. Several times at Montalvo, I think we all did. But really, the point of these transmutation rituals is to do something physical and active and in prayer, in public, in community.
Yeah. And you and I, collectively, there were tears in creating Live, and how you navigate that kind of space that is Montalvo, and present that kind of work and that kind of visual and performative work in that space.
I think doing that, and then the piece that I did directly after, where I transmuted sexual trauma and worked with a brilliant, brilliant woman, my friend Kendra, and specifically transmuted sexual trauma as a Black American woman, through, my first play, which was like, I didn't even know that that's what I was doing, was also super, super powerful. Yeah, we'll talk more about that later.
We can talk more about that. I want to, we've seen a lot of you promoting this idea of fun, but I want to break down fun. What is this? What is fun? What is this fun manifesto? And is it the moment for me to share it? Why don't you start first?
Okay. The F.U.N manifesto stands for Free You Now. And really, it is about, it is a community for people who know that this world is meant to be enjoyed. It is the overstanding that when you follow, when you chase your own laughter, the things that make you happy, that you find inside of you the tools that you need to keep going, and you become an answered prayer in the process. Like, I think a lot of times we have a tendency to think that they're gonna work hard, and then eventually you'll become a lawyer that like changes legislature, or you're gonna work hard and you're gonna be a teacher, and then eventually you're gonna educate the kids the right way. But what's real is that in the process of answering your own personal call, you become an answered prayer to the whole world, and everyone needs you to be you. And so the whole function of F.U.N is really to inspire people to be themselves.
It's great. So I'm going to share my screen. I want to look at two things. And first I want, Jennifer, you to talk a little bit, because this is something you created in this year. And it's a website, thefunmanifesto.com. And essentially, it's a social media site.
It is. It is, because the human mind creates what it imagines. And if you go to Facebook right now, God bless you, Facebook, for allowing us to live stream on your lovely little service. Howsomever's, right now, if you open up Facebook, you could run up on God knows who got murdered, right? And you can run up on whatever kind of violence is possible there. And you're mentally unprepared for it. I'll hop on Facebook to go and see what's going on with my friends from Montalvo. And in the process, I see whatever else. And so I wanted to create a place that was safe for people to share their love and their light and get information.
So this is a short video you created when you first launched the F.U.N Manifesto. You were heading to Africa for a tour. I'm just going to play it.
I believe very strongly that the human mind creates what it imagines. We bring to ourselves the pain and the violence because it's all that we think about. The whole point of me asking people about freedom is to inspire people to create freedom. If I can ask you to dream of it, I know that we will create more of it. This trip to South Africa is the beginning of a journey for me called the F.U.N Manifesto. F.U.N stands for Free You Now. When you chase fun, when you chase that thing that makes you giggle down the rabbit hole, so to speak, you find your freedom. And I believe that as we kind of ignite these smaller lights, the blaze that takes over the planet replaces the pain and the poverty and the anger and the anguish with joy.
What is true is hurt people, and only hurt people, the evil, disease, deception, disharmony of the soul.
No, I have to make it stop.
No, it's all good.
It's fantastic. So the first time you ever came to Montalvo was right before this tour.
I think it was right after.
Right after this tour. So early 2016, maybe right after the inauguration, sometime around that. I distinctly remember a conversation around the Commons kitchen island.
Yes. So many conversations in the Commons kitchen.
Well, there were many, but this was one that, yeah, Jennifer, you sort of rocked my world, and in the best way, right? And now we're here. So tell me, because you're still working on the F.U.N Manifesto, this is still a very active part of what you're doing. Tell me, we had an interesting conversation the other day about kind of your thinking around interdependence and freedom. And when I started at Montalvo, I was working with a curator named Julie Lazar, and we did 2 years worth of projects focused on interdependence. And it was a moment when people were like, why interdependence? Who cares about interdependence? And I wonder, you know, all these years later, for me, it's almost a 13-year anniversary. Why interdependence?
Because we're not here alone. Because we're just not on the planet alone. You're not in any relationship alone, you know? And it's a beautiful thing. I'm a spiritual person, so I believe that we are all a part of this one life energy, right? And that we are all a manifestation of this perfect, complete energy that some call God and some call Yahweh, and some people call it Jah, and some you could call it Shu, I don't care, right? But there's this huge energy that we're all a part of. And when we look at one another, we are a representation, a full representation, a 100% representation of the divine God when we look at one another. And I understand that I was put on this planet to do the work that I am meant to do. Ooh, Lord, it's amazing how like you will have a conversation in the day to say exactly to yourself what you need to hear in that day. Kelly's like, you gotta rest. And I'm like, you're right.
You're going for it.
Going for it, Kelly.
I know you.
You can only do what you're meant to do in this world, right? Like, I did not come here to be an architect, though I give thanks for the architects. Because were it not for the architects, I would not be in this beautiful house right now having this conversation with you, right? My job is to have this conversation with you. That's my work right now, right? And your job is to ask me questions and create space for artists to do what artists do. That's your work. If I tried to do your work, I'd be in your lane, not doing what I needed to do. You'd be screwed because you wouldn't have me. I'd be screwed. I didn't have you, right? And so like interdependence is something, understanding that a key tenet in freedom is interdependence, is understanding that I'm not in this world alone, right? I'm in this world with other people who have life purpose that is just as important as mine. And I have to do everything that I can to ensure that each and every living being has food, clothing, shelter, safety, clean air, clean water, access to culturally relevant education, Wi-Fi, and a passport, therefore access to one another, so that they can do what they need to do, right? Like if we were more dedicated to interdependence, I don't think that, no, I know for sure that this COVID situation would not be a problem, but the ailments of the world in general wouldn't be so much of an issue, right? Because if nothing else, we would have faith that people who are meant to work on those little pieces were capable, were protected, were seen, were supported, all of those things. And so, yeah, again, fun is about being yourself, because I believe that I need you to be you so that I can safely be me. And part of the reason I'm not safe is because there's too much fear that people that look like you will lose their power, their ability to be themselves if I get to be me. And the sad reality of that is that people who look like you don't have any idea how much of life they're missing because I don't get the freedom to be.
Like it comes upon me every day, and this is trite or whatever it is, but I don't want a world. You told me on Tuesday, I'm out. And I don't want a world that doesn't have people of color in it. I don't want a world without you in it. I don't want to live there. Jennifer, as you were planning this road trip, you had a really interesting kind of vision of exactly this, meeting people along the way. Can you just for a moment speak about kind of who you wanted to meet and what pathway you wanted to take? Because the March on Washington can also happen here in the Bay Area and in every city across the country.
And it is happening everywhere. And Movement for Black Lives is doing a national day of action, as is the NAACP. They started to release video today that is, whoo, man, do yourself a favor and go check out the imagery they're releasing, because they are playing no games and holding no prisoners. So yeah, my intention was to drive across the country to actually research my family legacy. I think that everybody should know where they're from, and in particular, Black Americans. And so my original plan for 2020 was to travel across the country, learning about my personal heritage, meeting brilliant people, and then continuing that journey around the world following my heritage. Always, because everywhere I go, I ask people about freedom. And then all of this happened. And it feels like still the desire to ask people about freedom is that much greater. And my intention was to show us each other. So, you know, I have a very diverse family. I was excited about seeing the people that I do know and the people that I don't know, and learning their perspectives and their ideas. But also rolling up on like Arkansas, I had this fantasy of meeting someone that I was going to call TT Patsy. And I was going to meet
What?
TT Patsy. And I was going to meet her in Arkansas or like Mississippi. And I imagine her being a white version of my Auntie Mary, who has seen absolutely everything. Like my Aunt Mary has seen the whole world and then some. And to have a really serious life conversation about values. Because one of the big issues here that I see in this country right now is that there's this polarizing thing called black and white, and there's this polarizing thing called Republican and Democrat. And inside of that, there's not an appreciation for every person wants to know that their kid is going to have food, clothing, shelter, safety, clean air, clean water, access to culturally relevant education, Wi-Fi, and a passport, right? There's a huge, huge gap here that says that, you know, these Republican senators hate me and that they want to limit all of my rights. There's no room or space where we're having conversation, or at least for me, where I'm hearing the kind of conversation that brings us closer together and not further apart. Like talking about what do you value, and are you saying that you don't value my life? You know, and in some cases that's absolutely the case. Like, you know, I don't know. I'm in a place right now where on this block, there are about 10 American flags that are flying outside, Kelly. And for me, I'm doing everything that I can to remember that that is not the same as the Confederate flag. And so this tour was selfish. I wanted to see people who didn't look like me so that I could like remember humanity and not become hateful.
Well, and this is right. This is a constant kind of mindset every day because the alternative is easier. You first thing that I want to say, the Monday morning following the death of George Floyd, murder of George Floyd, you called me and you said, I need you to fight. I need you to talk to white people and I need you to fight. And Jennifer, I'm going to just keep doing it the best way I know how. You know, at some point I was down on my knees with my husband. I'm like, I'm not the front line guy with the, you know, machete. I'm kind of in the hospital wings, making sure everybody's fed and nourished. And that's been my role. I mentioned that because then Juneteenth came. Right. And in the lead up to Juneteenth, you put out a request to people and you really, it was a day of visioning for you. And I think each Juneteenth should be a day of visioning because without that kind of reset of the mind and the visioning necessary to kind of imagine the future, we get stuck and we get stuck in this place of fear. Can you tell us a little bit about the response you got to that day of visioning? Sort of what moved you? What did you learn? What did you?
You know, this time has been a really deep moment of what do you actually believe, Jen Johns? Like, you can be like, oh, money, Padnam, hug a tree, and every once in a while things get a little bit more hectic, more intense. And so I have been pushed to bring more of my spirituality into my politics. And so what I want to see in this world is something that I need to speak out loud. And I know that when I'm looking to create a new record, or when I'm looking to move into a new home, or when I'm calling in a new relationship, that there are spiritual practices that I engage in, and I speak out loud, and I speak them as if they are the truth right here and right now, and I feel them in my spirit. And those are things that I learned from, you know, Science of Mind and from Dr. Michael Beckwith and many of my mentors, Alan Jones, who have taught me that you got to write it down, you got to say it out loud, and you got to believe it like it's real right now. And that you have to acknowledge that the process, that faith is a verb that you have to continue to reactivate constantly. And so when I decided to do Juneteenth, I had woken up and was heartbroken and furious. You know, George Floyd, I think it wasn't that it was the first time that we had seen a Black man be murdered. It was the first time that we watched it take 8 minutes and 46 seconds with the cop with his hands in his pocket, right? And it was the first time that mothers, regardless of race, saw their baby under someone's knee. And my heart needed to create another reality that would come from this time. And so what I asked was for people to imagine a world where all living beings can thrive. And what does that look like in just 4 years? And the response was, man, like, wow, it was so beautiful to hear so many different people put their physical, personal selves. 4 years, June 19th, 2024, where the NFL and the NBA are worker-owned cooperatives, and where you know, folks was getting married all over the place, and food was just a thing that was just in the streets and available. And just to hear people creatively explain how their life looked connected with that was humbling, at least. We'll definitely do it next year.
Have you created an archive of these visions? You know, it's important for me to tell you, and I've told you before, so you've heard this, but thinking about that, that was an interesting struggle for me, you know, and it was also an interesting observation as I kind of watched what was going by on social media or in conversations where people really don't imagine what this future looks like. We don't really imagine what it looks like to shift systemic racism out of our sort of sights. We can't envision what that is. And so I've sat with that for a long time and thought about it for a long time. And as we come off of these conversations, and I've learned kind of to enjoy this space of Zoom and the fact that we can reach out to our, you know, peers all over country, all over the world. I've been working closely with Donna on a new series that will launch after Labor Day entitled Scratch Space. And we're really going to invite our artists, share the work they're working on, reflect on past projects, but all with an angle of kind of radical imagination. And that is inspired by you. That imagining is so important. And I'm seeing these kinds of conversations happening everywhere. I'm seeing them at the Hammer Museum in Los Angeles, and I'm seeing them in other places, because this is what we need. We need a collection of imaginings. We need an inspiration that's going to take us, because, you know, unfortunately, we're living through this pandemic. And fortunately, it's more than a pause. And it's a stop, and this is our opportunity. Makes me think of Ibrahim Nakmi, and I just want to do a shout out to him, who's in Beirut, had a terrible accident in the explosion, and you saw, because you were on the email that he emailed us this morning to say, you know, he took a heavy beating. He's starting, you know, to get an idea of the power of healing that is possible through his own mind. And I know for you, that's a real thing, right? And so much that he's learned and discovered through this process. He said he's grateful to be alive. And in a weird way, he's grateful to have gone through this life-changing experience, because it's like being reborn. And I don't know why kind of this human nature, you know, it would be far against everything I believe or think, that we need to have these kinds of tragedies to kind of have that rebirth. It's the ashes and the phoenix, right? It's these moments. He said he can't wait till we can reunite again in a magnificent new world. Jen, I
Montalvo is Hogwarts for creatives, dude.
I'm quite proud of myself because I'm not crying.
Not fair, Kelly. No,
So
I'll just read his email to you this morning. You know I love him so much.
So I want to read something to you because I did never send you a vision, and because I believe that this imagining is true, and I believe we create what we envision, and we create what we think is possible. I mean, for God's sakes, we believe that there could be flying cars, and before our death, there will be flying cars, right? That's a no-brainer.
Absolutely.
Dear Jen, writing to you from 2024. I know you're as amazed as I am with the changes we're seeing and the clarity of sight 2020 brought to the world's humanity. It really was no joke. The price we paid in lives lost to the coronavirus and other acts of senseless violence on Black and brown bodies still pains us, more today than ever. But in that time we were guided to today. And I couldn't be more grateful for the artists and creatives who stepped up to show us the way, to reveal the unseen, unspoken, and misunderstood. Pathways were provided to overcome the seemingly insurmountable divisions of the time. In the US, because you could be in Grenada. In the US, we've seen an unimaginable systemic change in our educational structures, allowing every child at last to receive access to a standards-based education with equal resources distributed widely throughout the nation's public school systems. The commitment to sharing the multiplicity of stories of our history, rounding out the understanding of who we are as a nation and where we come from, is allowing us to move into that vision we created collectively just 4 short years ago. Could you imagine the pebble you cast when you invited all to dream a vision, empowering all to imagine a world where there was enough for all of humanity to thrive and all humans to have their needs met? Well, my dear, you did it. And by the fall of that year, everyone was on board, visioning the world they wanted to be part of. They were finally free to embody the change they could see. Victory gardens are everywhere. People are fed, people are cherished and respected. Artists have a seat at every table, and boy, are we active. The participatory sport of democracy was not lost as we had feared, but has become embedded into the cells of every American, mobilizing their voices and looking out for the needs of their neighbors at every level of government. Upholding racial equity is now common, and cultural curiosity is a norm. We're seeing an embrace of diversity. We're seeing color and seeing differences as our greatest asset. Oh, there's still work to be done. But from those dark days of August 2020, we've come a long way. We are the people. With love and gratitude to you, my friend, let's be together soon.
Thank you.
Jen, one more thing I want to, I know.
She said before we started, she was like, usually you make me might cry, but I'm gonna make you cry this time.
So tell everybody, tell me what you're working on. I know you've got a new project. I know this is not necessarily a transmutation, but probably very much so a transmutation. You muted yourself with the paper ball you threw at me.
Because I didn't want them to hear me crying. And your vision is perfect, by the way. Yeah, I have been blessed. I was commissioned to write an album of prayer mantras. And I'll be honest with you, this is probably one of the more challenging projects I've worked on, which would seem completely irrational from somebody who is spiritual and prays a lot. But I think I'm probably putting the undue or unnecessary pressure of myself of feeling like it's such a critical time that somehow my prayers must be perfect, which I know rationally is irrational. But I'm basically translating I am that I am, the life of all things, into as many languages as I can, and doing my best to fix my mouth to sing those words.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I am that I am,
The life
of all things. How many languages have you got?
too many. I've got English, Hebrew, Spanish, French, Haitian Creole, Urdu, Tagalog, Twi, Wolof, Xhosa, Zulu. I feel like I'm missing some folks.
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
Say it again.
I said the Hebrew translation is really beautiful, actually. Sonic.
You're fabulous.
Bless you.
Tell me a little bit more about what you're going to do with this self-care piece.
That's what I'm gonna do today, Kelly. Yeah. I'm going to not worry that I can't fix the world today. I'm going to remember that I'm only capable of doing what I'm here to do, and that's to sing and pray, at least as far as I know right now. And then in the process of allowing myself to be honest about that being hard for me right now, that even in just doing that, I acknowledge that that's an answered prayer, that somebody needs to hear that what they do is enough. And even for those of us who are very busy-bodied, gotta slow down. Before the Lord slows you down, tell you, you don't want that.
I'm going to sort of rearrange our end a little bit. I'm going to play listening for all of our guests. And if there's any questions following that, we'll close with a couple of questions. Thank you for being with me today.
Thank you for being you. I love you.
I love you too. All right, let me share this screen. Because Nathan, who nobody can see, was here to show me just how to make this happen.
There's a green button at the bottom.
There's a green button at the bottom, but I first got to find our song. And then I want to only share it so you and I can sit here and make faces at each other while we play it. It's a beautiful song. Start over. There you go.
Wide open, struck a nerve that's centuries deep, and I can hear them whispering. I can feel them with me. We paint in shades of silence into this rain with Stephanie. We're normalizing violence on brown skin and black bodies. Do you hear them? Hear them whispering. Can you feel them? Feel them with me. Yes. Listen. Somebody's calling my name. Listen. Somebody's calling your name. I can hear the wings of change. And she says it's going, oh Lord, it's going to be okay. Yes, I can hear the winds of change. Yeah, 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 yeah. She says it's going. Oh Lord, it's going to be okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, my, it's going to be okay. Oh, stand up, come on, man. Can you hear them? You hear them whispering. Oh, can you feel them? Feel them with me.
Jennifer,
Yes.
thank you, dear. Thanks for sharing the day with me.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being you.
Absolutely. Likewise. Open up Montalvo soon.
Angela, are you listening?
Are you listening?
When it's safe and when we're ready, it'll be opened up.
Thank you.
I miss you. Take good care of you.
As well. Am I logging off or do we have questions?
Do we have any questions? We have no questions.
Okay.
Oh, we have 2 participants with raised hands. Okay. Here's, Nathan, do you want to, I think Roland Pierce Dixon has his hand raised, as does Gregory Sale and Stacy Johnson.
My name is Rolanda.
Rolanda, I apologize.
And I just want to thank you so much for just a nice spiritual afternoon with all that we've been going through and all we're putting up with. But Kamala's coming, Biden's coming, and I'm having faith. So I'm signing off. So thank you.
Thank
Thank you for joining us.
Okay, bye-bye.
you.
You too.
Stacy Johnson.
I just want to say thank you so much for sharing and for your healing music. I'm new to your sound, but I absolutely love it. And I just wanted to say thank you, that I find it very healing.
Thank you so much. Go to
Thank you for joining us.
jennjohns.com, JENNJOHNS, and the album that I recorded while in South Africa is there, and you can listen to it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a beautiful day.
You too.
Oh, look at, there's a familiar face.
Hello, hi.
Hello.
You?
I just feel really this moment of warmth and love has come over me, and I just wanted to sort of reflect that back a moment and invite a bit of conversation around the sort of bravery that I see and the courage I see in sort of negotiating all these spaces of vulnerability, of awfulness that's been happening, and how you sort of just very gracefully and powerfully grab hold of your spiritual self, talk about doing inner work and self-care, and as you also maintain your sort of position as an artist in contemporary society that can sometimes kind of shun that kind of spiritual voice and vulnerability. And so I don't know, I just feel really blessed to get to run beside you sometime and watch you at work and in these spaces. And so I'm mumbling and rambling, but I just wanted to know if you could speak to those things a bit.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, just so good to hear your voice, and it is great to run alongside you. For those of you who maybe are my fans and don't know Gregory Sale, is an incredible, incredible curator, powerful human being who makes sure that we get seen. You know, just as I think that's the best way to kind of speak about your work, is that I see that you work really hard to make sure that those who are kind of in the fringes get seen. And I think that that's a lot of the work that we artists do. I would not say that I feel particularly graceful right now. I'm gonna go ahead and say I feel hella crazy right now, Gregory. Extra hella crazy right now. And so I think that the blessing of being an artist is that I guess maybe it looks like art. Right now, I just feel crazy. I spoke to Kelly on Monday and was like, yo, I don't want to live in a country where I feel like the flag looks like violence to me. And I don't want to live in a country where I feel like I need to carry a weapon. And I don't want to live in a country where, I mean, anybody who knows me knows that, you know, I do want to be married and I do want to have children, but I am a Black woman who loves Black men, and that will come with an incredible amount of anxiety. And so I think that my grace is coming from being honest, because I can't hold in the rage or the pain, and praying that I remember consistently that prayer is enough, that sitting still and trusting that the process is enough, and that, you know, so, but thank you.
Thank you.
It's great to hear you, Gregory. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Hope to see you soon, sir.
And there was one message from a dear Lori Wood who said, thank you. What did she say exactly? Thank you for all the work you're doing in the world. No, I appreciate you. Blessings to you. I'm glad you can't see me here bawling in my garden. Thank you.
I can't see you. Oh, that's what she wrote?
Thank you for nourishing the world. That's what she wrote. Jennifer, you're a gem. Take good care of yourself. Get angry when you need to, and swim when you need to.
Thank you.
It's a marathon.
Not a race.
But we set a vision and we have a goal.
We do. Yes, we do. And we will get there. We absolutely
will get there.
I just might be someplace else, but it's fine.
No. We need to.
Thomas, and
We're gonna tie her in. All right, my dear.
I love you. I'll talk to you
I
later.
love you too.
Bye.
Have a good day.